Hello, I'm Reverend Stan Sigstad on a Light on the Hill Mobile Chapel. What I do basically is I go out there and witness to people any way I can. Um, One thing that really inspired me was a friend of mine I'd witnessed to when I was maybe 15, a long time ago. He was a Christian. He went to church sometimes. I went to church all the time, even though I had a really turbulent home. I had a rough walk with God. In our home, it was like, do as I say, not as I do. So while Mom was forcing us to go to church, well, she'd go to church too, but she'd be out doing things like cheating on my dad and just living like the devil. Really rough. But I still had a strong faith in God, even though I was a little kid. I was doing things like, I was afraid that demons would be coming into my room, so I'd be pleading the blood of Jesus over me and binding the demons and commanding them to leave. As a little kid, I mean, that's what they taught me in church on what to do if demons came after you. So here I am binding the demons and commanding them to leave. I went to see my friend Doug last month. He lives out in the Los Angeles area. I won't say exactly where. I gave him a Bible back in August of 1974, and I'd completely forgotten about it. Well, he had this Bible, and his mom had taken care of it for him for a while. And Doug, back then, had drifted away from God. I had drifted away from God, and we were both having rough lives. In this Bible, I wrote an inscription for him. I said, "Don't sell this Bible. Even if you are starving, don't sell this Bible. It's more valuable than 1 ton of gold. Keep this book until Jesus comes." From Jim S. Sigstad to Doug N. Poss on the 25th day of August, 1974. Now, my first name is Stan, but I wrote my first name as being Jim because I didn't like my first name. The point of what I'm saying is, you as a Christian are important to God. What you say matters to people. This Bible led my friend back to Christ. He had been having a rough time with drugs and just a wild life and everything. And his mom gave this Bible back to him, and it's what led him back to God. There are so many ways to reach people. You could walk up to strangers and witness to them. You can give them a Bible. The dollar store sells Bibles for $1. The whole Bible, Old and New Testament combined. Not just, they sell the New Testaments too. But I'm out there buying Bibles from the dollar store and passing those out. If you're really shy or really afraid of talking to people, how about Bible tracts? These are little comic books that you buy from Chick Tracts, and you can write the information on the back of a church name, address, phone number, whatever. And what I do with those is I leave them everywhere, in phone booths, in bathroom stalls, on benches in the mall. When I went down, I took a 2,000-mile trip, and I'd leave them at rest stops, on the benches, on the tables. I'd leave them in the bathrooms, and when I got down to the area that I was going to stay at for a week, I'd leave them all over the place. I made one woman mad because I was walking along the beach, and I'd be watching to see where people were, and I'd drop one on a towel because there people were off in the ocean playing. Well, I saw this woman's kids' toys, so she wasn't watching me at the time, so I figured, well, okay, I'll drop one on his bucket, and maybe she won't see. She saw me right as I dropped it by the bucket, and as I walked away, she stood up real quick, stormed over to it, looked at the Bible tract, and threw it on the beach. Well, some people might look at that as a failure, but it's not, because her throwing that on the beach might mean that someone else will pick up that Bible tract and read it. You never know how God's going to reach someone. Back at 15 years old, I gave this Bible to a friend, and I had a rough time growing up. I didn't think that anyone would ever listen to anything I said, whatever it is. And here, this Bible had led my friend back to Christ. When I went to see him, he gave this Bible back to me, and I was so choked up I couldn't say anything, because he told me about how this Bible had led him to Christ. He said, "This Bible returned to Stan Sigstad on June 25th, 2012. Keep your eyes on Jesus until his return." From Douglas Poss. This Bible is in pretty bad shape. You see old tape here that's not sticky anymore, and the pages are a little bit rough, but the binding's a little bit broken. But this Bible means a lot to me because it showed me that God was going to use me to reach someone, even though I didn't think anything of myself. I thought I was insignificant, that I was less than nothing. No one was going to listen to what I had to say, so why should I say anything in the first place? What you should do is not worry about who will or will not listen to you. You do what God has told you to do. Be fishers of men like Jesus wants you to be. Go out there, preach the gospel as much as you can. Sure, people are going to say stuff to you, mean stuff. They're going to threaten you. They're going to talk all kinds of stuff, tell you that God's dead and God doesn't exist and whatever. They'll argue with you tooth and nail. You just do what God leads you to do and let him worry about the rest. You are very important to God. We are going to judge angels someday. And that says a lot. Let God lead you in every aspect of your life. And don't forget to thank God. In everything, give thanks. Thank God constantly, not just for the good things that happen in your life, but bad things too. I've had a ton of bad things happen in my life. I'll save that for another speech, because that would take a while. But in everything, give thanks to God. You are important. What you have to say to the public is important. You might be the difference between someone going to heaven and hell. Would you really want to live with the fact that your best friend went to hell because you were too afraid to talk to him about Jesus? Could you live with the fact that your son or your daughter or your husband or wife is going to hell because your pride? You're too afraid to tell them about Jesus for fear of what they might say. Tell them anyways. Don't be afraid. Jesus was tortured for you and me. He was tortured, brutally tortured. Had the whiskers plucked out of his beard. He was ripped apart on a whip with metal things on there, to the point where you couldn't even recognize him. Big railroad spikes slammed into his hands and feet, and the crown of thorns not just gently placed on his head, but put on there and beat on with a stick. And it's believed when the thorns came out through one of his eyes. He went through all kinds of torture to get you into heaven. Shouldn't you help as many people that you know to get into heaven too? Put your pride aside. Make God first in your life. If you don't make God first in your life, He'll make you last in His. I'm Reverend Stan Sigstad for A Light on the Hill Mobile Chapel. God bless you.